Hi, welcome to the newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Deep Mahmood, with my normal co-host, Hunter. And today we're going to be talking about Julio Rodriguez's contract extension. We're going to be talking some NFL preseason news, Ravens and Steelers, and we're going to preview the college Virginia Tech football season and some maybe a little college football, other college football as well. So let's talk about the Aaron Donald Cincinnati Bengals fight. What was your reaction when you saw that?
That was, it looks very similar to the Miles Garrett situation, I should say. I don't, Funny, come back here, buddy. I don't think, the rule for like him not being suspended, Donald, that is so stupid. The league says, oh, that the teams have to discipline them since it's practice. But, you know, why in the heck are the two teams that just played in the Super Bowl practicing with each other? I don't care that they play in the preseason this week. That game means absolutely nothing. Why in the hell are they practicing? Of course, it's going to be bad blood. Bengals blew a fourth quarter lead with only a couple minutes remaining. Aaron Donald had one of the plays of the game. Of course, they're going to try to go after him and stuff. It's just, it makes no sense. I honestly am not a fan of joint practices overall. Teams are
I don't
ultra
think the Steelers,
competitive.
or I don't think the Steelers were doing it this year. I
And
know the
I
Rams.
don't even remember the last time they've done one. I'll say that. I legitimately don't. So, and you've even seen, excuse me, Cam Hayward has gone, pretty
Oh
public
yeah,
with his thoughts, and he's not a fan of them, and he doesn't ever want the Steelers to do them. And you know, he has a point. He even said teams are ultra competitive. The coaches are going to coach up their guys, even if it's just practice. And that's why you see these kind of scrums. And obviously, Donald took it really too far. I think he should probably get a suspension for that. If Miles Garrett got one, it's unfortunate that the league is not going to step in just because this is a team oriented thing. But again, at the end of the day, there's no business for that on the football field. I don't care if it's in game. I don't care if it's in practice. You don't swing a helmet at someone. It makes you just look childish. I think. I just did not like that play at all.
yeah. I think for me, I think what the important thing here to note is we don't know what happened to cause that. We know that obviously emotions ran high. We don't know if one of the Bengals players was doing something to one of the Rams players and Aaron Donald stepped in. Still, he should not have done that. I don't think he'll get suspended. Maybe he gets fined, maybe a fine,
Yeah,
but no, yeah, like I don't see him getting suspended a game. So I mean, I'm not going to try to rush into too many judgments saying that he should have done that because we don't know. Like I said, we don't know what happened before. We basically only saw um, Aaron Donald just having two helmets in his hand. We don't know what led to that, so that's gonna be there. The whole practice thing. I mean, joint practices. Like you practice with your own teammates all the time, and obviously you can't release all your anger out there and all your emotions when you do these joint practices. I understand it. You know your off. Like if you're offense, you know the defense. If you're a defense, you know your offense. So it does kind of become redundant at points. But um, like joint practices, I don't think ultimately work out at the end because you do have these skirmishes. It's almost like you're holding out all this emotion, and now you can release that emotion onto another team because that's not your teammates. That's someone you're going up against, and it is something that the league I think will have to look at some point. But it's the first thing we're gonna cover. So let's go into the Ravens Steelers preseason. What were some stuff about what is your thoughts been about the Steelers preseason?
yeah. So I mean, the quarterback situation, it's gone how I would expect. Trubisky, I know, is starting on Sunday, and people are going to say, "Oh, well, if he's starting, that means the quarterback competition is over." I don't really fully buy that. I think Mike Tomlin just wants to get one more glimpse at them before he makes the inevitable announcement that um, Trubisky is going to be the starter. I mean, he's been the starter all preseason, been the starter since he signed back in March. I think unless he has a complete disastrous performance against the Lions on Sunday, he is going to start. Now, I know Kenny Pickett's been really good. He's going to back him up to start the year. Mason Rudolph, don't really know what his future is. Could be traded. Is he going to be the number 3? I think all those options are on the table. Defensively, I think, they've mainly been okay, but their biggest issue, again, has been the offensive line. It's not good enough. James Daniels, I think, is getting cooked quite a bit. Okorofor is getting cooked. Kendrick Green is getting destroyed. It was an issue last year. They semi-addressed it during the offseason. It wasn't enough.
Is
You
Kendrick
have to
Green
go.
playing inside? No, is he in? Is he guard or is he still center? I know there's still that issue with
It
the
was.
Seahawks.
He's playing guard. I think it's right guard,
Okay.
but just not consistent enough. And I'm I'm tired of the line not being good because and I understand because they did invest heavily in the line during Ben's peak years, but you still got to keep that up. Obviously, you're not going to like heavily invest in it because you have David Castro, Marquise Pouncey, Marcus Gilbert,
Yeah, you
and
got lucky with a lot of talented players, essentially, right? So it's
yeah, I mean,
hard
like they
to
knew what they were doing, but they just stopped because those players were here for so long. But once some of those players started to leave, they didn't invest as heavily into it, and now you're paying the price here. Again, I understand that people were upset last year with the Najee Harris pick because it didn't adjust the line. Pat Fryermuth this year when they took a quarterback, they could have taken a lineman. At the end of the day, they made their bed here. They're going to have to live in it, but I do think after this season, whenever they win 7 to 8 games, I think it's anywhere between 7 to 10, in my opinion. They're probably going to go hard after O lineman in the draft, and they kind of have to. You can't have Trubisky and Kenny Pickett just roaming around outside the pocket just for their life every play. That's all Trubisky did last week against the. I almost forgot you. This is again preseason, man. But that's all Trubisky did last week. Kenny Pickett. He faced a lot of pressure as well, made some really nice throws, but they have to hit on the O-line. It's been terrible for the last couple of years. They decided not to do as much with it as they should have during this offseason, and it's going to be a massive issue again this year. Everything else I think is fine running back-wise, very good. Receivers are fine. Tight end, totally good. Linebacker-wise, you have to hope that Devin Bush, will bounce back during the regular season. I'm not taking too much, of the preseason and camp into account. When the games count, and if he is bad, then I think you might have to move on from him. But overall, I've liked what I've seen in the preseason, and I know what their issues are going to be during the year.
Yeah. So with the Ravens, it's really been getting everyone healthy, getting everyone set up because if last year felt like in Infinity War when Thanos snapped his fingers and everyone was getting dusted, this season should feel like an end game when the portal started opening up and everyone started coming through the portals. So I think that's basically for the Ravens, and that's why they haven't really played a lot of their starters in the preseason, and because they do not want to they don't want an injury, they don't want injuries, they want to avoid all of what happened last year. And speaking of that, there's the good news is the last few weeks that J.K. Dobbins was activated for practice, and he's been practicing. Marcus Peters has come back. Ronnie Stanley just passed his physical, and the Ravens have one of the most grueling physicals out there, which is pretty much like, do you know what the Ravens physical? Do you know what the Ravens thing is? Because you may have heard about it, right? Do you know what it is exactly?
I don't think I've heard too much about it, to be honest.
So basically, the idea is you have to run, from what I understand, you have to run to the uh, 25-yard line. No, I think it's like 20 or 25-yard line and back, and you got to do it about 6 times. Um, you got to do it 6 times. They'll give you like a minute break, and the idea is, or like you have to do it in a certain amount of times with a certain amount of waves, and each wave you have to do it in about, if you're a receiver, it has to be like 24 seconds per each wave, or linemen say like a certain time. So it's basically like like suicide squeeze, like suicides in basketball, like basically imagine like running to from one side of the court to half court, running it 3 times, and then you have a minute break, and then you have to run it another 3 times, and then you have another minute break, and then you have to do that 6 times, and then based on the position that you play, there has to be a certain time. Like, you have to do it within 25 seconds each of those times. So run like all these Ravens players often fail that. Some of them fail it because it is grueling. It is really hard to do. Now, so it's good that seeing that Ronnie Stanley passed that because so he had to do that and he passed it. So he's probably not going to be ready for week one, but he like give him like 2 3 weeks of practice. If you get a even 75% of what he can be, that's a pretty good left tackle. Speaking of offensive line, the left guard position looks like it's Ben Powers, Ben Cleveland, um, center Linderbaum's been practicing after a slight scare with his foot. I think that was a really smart move by them. Like Hollywood Brown was good, but Linderbaum I think for the next 5 6 years is going to be 5 years is going to be great. Having a center like that, right guard Kevin Zeitler really reliable, right tackle Morgan Moses really reliable. Juwan James has been solid. I know he hasn't played much in the last couple of years, but he's more than likely to left tackle, backup left tackle. Look, if he's better than Villanueva, great. That's all we ask. And then Daniel Fale, for someone who's only played football for 5 6 years, he has picked up pass protection much better than you would expect someone like him to do. He's like Jordan May from the Eagles, where like both of those guys get started playing football. So like that their progress and development has to be different from someone who's played the line for a long time. So it's the line. I definitely feel way more confident in the line than I felt last year because they did focus on the depth, and it all depends on Ronnie Stanley. If he comes back and he's 75%, I mean, you know how much the Ravens run. You know how much they utilize the tight end. So I mean, um, if they can run the ball, it's not like they don't need 10, 15 yards per run. It's even if they do 5 yards run, like 5 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards, and then you use the 12, 13 personnel, great. When it can the tight ends, Isaiah Likely may have been a big steal. He may have been a big steal because this is a guy. He's 6'4", 235, so he's big for. The thing is that teams were kind of looking at him. He's big. He's kind of on that cutoff line. Like he's a bit too big to be a receiver, but he's too light to be a tight end. So they call him a tight end, but he's a tight end that moves like a receiver. So and then apparently his raw athletic score wasn't very good. But when you put on the tape, this guy was moved around in Coastal Carolina, and you pair him with Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman, like just pair Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews on the field at the same time because that hasn't happened yet in the preseason. And then you pair with Lamar and Rashad Bateman. That's like the Ravens can dominate the middle of the between the hashes just with Likely and Andrews, and then when Kolar and then we bring in Demarcus Robinson, they got back, who they just signed, and you still got Duvernay and Prochet and all some of these other guys. This Ravens passing offense, the word to describe would be efficient. They're not in baseball terms. They're not going to be hitting it like in. It's not like they're going to be hitting a ton of home runs. It's going to be like singles and doubles, but they're going to nickel and dime you, and then you're going to look at it 5 10 minutes later, and they're going to be in field goal range. They're going to go back to bully ball back in 2019, and I know Ravens fans were upset about the receiver position, but I think the Ravens are kind of understanding this with analytics. Receivers and tight ends, the difference between them is starting to blur, and they're looking at it like pass catchers, not necessarily receivers and tight ends. So that's smart there. The one concern you do have to have is the pass rush because David Ojabo isn't going to be ready for another until week 5 or week 6. And then Tyus Bowser was on the pup list, so he's not going to be available for the first 4 weeks. So it's really Adafe, Stephen Means, a few other pieces, Justin Houston, Jeremiah Moon, who's a talented, like a fast outside linebacker. So if they can do that, but then that's the one concern you do have. And then when it comes to the corners and safeties, that as long as they're healthy, you have a good room. And so the point is, with all of this, is the Ravens have a talented team. If they are healthy, they are good. I like the fact that the safeties are good. The offensive line, if the offensive line can protect Lamar, I mean, you might see if you see 2019 in terms of efficiency with the talent they have, with Bateman versus over Hollywood in the Hollywood role, and Isaiah Likely in the Hayden Hurst role. Just basically think of it like Likely is where Hayden Hurst is what Hayden Hurst was. Bateman is where Hollywood was, and then you move on from there. And so it's it's going to be pretty fun to watch. So let's move on to the next topic, which is MLB news. We know that Julio Rodriguez signed an extension with the Mariners. Hunter, what are your thoughts on that one, Hunter?
Yeah, I mean, he I think he got a contract that he definitely deserved. What was it, 210 million, and then
I'm
I
finding
think it's
to
like
with this
up
contract.
to I think it was like up to that, if I'm not mistaken. Um, yeah, but I think it's like what, 10, 15 years. I think it could go up to
14 years, 210 guaranteed, but it could be up to
up,
about
up to
450.
400.
No, it's like it's up to about 450 with a bunch of escalators,
Okay,
escalator clauses.
gotcha. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that's a pretty sweet deal. You get him well before he's a free agent. I think he's not even eligible until 2026 or something, maybe
Yeah,
later.
something like that.
Yeah, so I think that's a team kind of a team friendly deal, I guess, in a way. But they expect a lot out of him, and I don't know why my dog is just coughing over here, but he's just having fun. But I think they definitely expect a lot out of him. I think he expects a lot of that himself. And the Mariners, I think they're ready to compete at it. I think that this shows the rest of the league that they're ready to be a contender for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, no, I think what it tells me is the Mariners really want that 21. People to forget about that they haven't made the playoffs in 21 years. I think that's the very first thing that there was. The second thing is great for Julio Rodriguez, great for the Mariners for locking up the talent early. The problem though that you get with a with these types of contracts, it's is that it's very team friendly. And the problem with these team friendly contracts is Julio Rodriguez could very well be like Hunter. Let me ask you a question though. If I were to tell you, one name three like five players that could legitimately get 45 million a year in a few years in a market value, do you think Julio Rodriguez would be one of those guys like him, Soto, and maybe someone else? Like
I think so. I would say one of five. Yes, with how good he already is, I think so. Yes. Would you?
And yeah, oh yeah, and think about it, like this contract. It's 14 years. It's paying him 15 million a year guaranteed before
Yeah.
escalator clauses. And with these types of contracts, out of that 450, how much do you think he's going to see? 325, 320, somewhere in that range. If he plays 14 years, because it's this contract's structured weird. It's like it's a 8-year deal, then he could opt in, no, he could opt out, and then there's like another 4 or 5 year deal. It's like one of those like multiple contracts set up with some opt outs here and there. But the point is, even if he somehow hits all those escalators and gets to 450 or whatever the final number ends up being, he's making 30, 31, 32 million a year. And we're now talking about a guy like at age 21, his market value could very well be 45. So I understand, yeah, you see the money and you see the Braves do this with Riley and Acuna and Michael Harris. It's good for the players, but it does feel a little like like they're underselling themselves, right? Like if you just wait a little bit more and sign this type of contract, maybe instead of 15 million a year before all the escalators, maybe he could have gotten 20 million a year before all the escalators, right? And then just basically there's also that school thought he's not getting the market value. And Orioles fans were looking at this and saying, well, what about Adley? And that's where the next thing I want to kind of come in here with. Like, he's doing really well, and right now, I think the Orioles will sign Adley to an extension within the next 2 years. I think there were rumors that they were talking about it with Adley before this year started. So clearly they have that mindset for him. Real Muto right now has the record at 24 million a year, but he signed out when he was 28, 29 years old. Adley's 24, so if he were to sign a contract now, and by the way, you have to keep in mind, Adley Rutschman had an $80 million signing bonus, so it's not like he needs to sign an extension right now.
Yeah,
Julio Rodriguez was an international signing around 1 million, if that. So
it's
that
crazy.
yeah,
From
so
1 million to like 210 in like an instant.
yeah, so you also got to think about with these international signings, like how much money they got as a bonus, and then how willing are they to sign a massive contract? So that's the other thing you got to look at. So I mean, I could see in the next couple years, an 8 year, 220 million dollar extension for Rutschman. Bobby Witt Jr. is gonna be interesting. Um, I mean, the Nationals. I maybe the Nationals were trying to do this type of contract with Soto last couple of years, but obviously it was a little bit too late on that one. I don't know if they tried to get him extended in 2020 or 2019. No, sorry, 2020 or 2021, and they tried to do it then. But it is definitely an interesting situation here. But we're going to move on to the next topic, which is Hokies football. College football starts next. Well, week 0 starts today.
And I should say an update. Nebraska 5-21 in one-score games under Scott Frost. They just blew another one. And need I not remind everyone, according to Yahoo Sports here, I'll just get this tweet up for you, Adit, Scott Frost's buyout significantly reduces in October. So if you want to fire him, that could be the time to do it. And for some reason, they decided to bring him back this year, and more is the same. 0-1, they lose a 3-point.
I'm shocked he still has a job. I'll put it that way. I'm shocked. But I mean,
that's the first thing, though. Just saying.
Yeah. Was there anything else you want to talk about in week 0 before we talk about Virginia Tech in particular?
Did you see Desmond Howard's top 4?
Yeah, that was not good. That was not good.
That was that way. If you don't have Alabama in there, I'm sorry. Like, that's sad.
Alabama or Georgia, one of those two have to be in there.
I would say this: Georgia, I don't know if we'll be there this year. Alabama or Ohio State for me. If you don't have one of those two, or even Alabama, I think you're just doing it wrong. They have 2 of the top 3 draft picks in next year's draft ready to go.
I mean, considering that A&M was the only SEC team that was there, I think, yeah, I mean, that was not a fun. That was not like, you could tell that was not going. That's going to be on what was it? Cold Takes, that Twitter account. Like, someone's going to post that.
Cold Takes exposed. Yep.
That's
like, it was Pitt, Texas A&M, Michigan somehow, and then someone else.
Go to Michigan, so there's a bias right there.
Yeah, dude. Michigan's going to beat Ohio State again this year in Columbus.
Right. Without Hutchinson, they're not going to go that far without
Hutchinson. Jackson Smith and Najibba, Travion Henderson, and a whole lot more.
No, but also no Hutchinson, no Ajabo. They're too big. They're too good passers. Oh yeah, and by the way, that defensive coordinator that changed the defense for Michigan is now in Baltimore. So, yep. So, whoever that new defensive coordinator is has a lot of shoes to follow, because what Mike McDonald did with that Michigan defense was impressive. And now you lose all that talent in that defense coordinator. I don't know how Michigan's going to fare. And then especially with that whole Jim Harbaugh, Vikings, all that stuff happened. I don't understand that one. Oh yeah, and by the way, they also lost Josh Gaddis to Miami as well. So I don't know what he was thinking putting Michigan in college football playoffs. So I mean, it was there like. Now let's talk Hokies football. I mean, obviously season starts next week. There's some like grant worries. So let's start with the news that they are continuing to 25. Someone's the best special team player is going to wear 25, and also the lunch pail is coming back. What are your thoughts on that? on those.
I mean, would you expect anything different? I mean, those are two long-standing traditions. I feel like Brent Pry, with his history to the program, he was under Bud Foster. He knows him, and just being a graduate assistant for the defense, I think that was a no-brainer. Very good decisions to bring those back.
Yeah, and then also like so I think it just shows that Brent Pry knows Virginia Tech and knowing, and then that Fuente and his staff, they basically were, it was lip service when it came to tradition, and they kind of wanted to build their own thing, and we all know it didn't turn out well, and obviously Brent Pry does have a tough shoes to follow. Grant Wells is now named the starting quarterback. Jason Brown's the backup, and then and I believe I forgot who the third string was. But they definitely have. I mean, the quarterback depth is better. The receiver. Let's see what the receiver does. Let's see what the receiving group does. I mean, Caleb Smith stepping into the number one receiver spot. You got Jaden Blue. Who was the other guy? And then Dewan Lofton. Like, what are your thoughts on the?
Yeah, I like the receiver group this year. I think Caleb Smith is going to be utilized a lot. Tight end sets, slot wide receiver. I think he might be. I'll put a bold prediction out there. He's going to have the most yards for a receiver / tight end on this team this year. I really do think that. But that they have their options. You said Jaden Blue. I think Jaden Blue. I think he's going to be close. Dewan Lofton. I have some other freshman receivers coming in. I think Jalen Jones could get some playing time. Yep, Tucker Holloway. He could get some playing time too. I'm just really curious to see like this new balanced attack that they have. I think they're going to run some power run games that will open up play action in some plays in the shot, and it's not going to be like a weird.
It could be bully. I think it's going to be bully ball. The way they're going to play.
Yeah,
you're still going to see some NASCAR packages, but I mean, looking at the way like mentioning Joe Rudolph as bringing him the offensive coordinator. The new offense coordinator was the tight ends coach. Do you know where they're heading towards in that direction? I mean, Nick Gallo is going to be important. So some of these players are going to be there. And then obviously this is a big year for Dax Hollifield, and I think that he was a highly recruited guy. He didn't get his shine for the last few years. And then you have a guy like Brent Pry who knows who's been experienced using linebackers. So, what are your expectations with Dax Hollifield this year?
I mean, I do think for Dax, like this could be his best year yet, or I'm hoping so. I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised that he's still here. He's definitely really committed to this program because he really hasn't won since he got here. He's a very talented 4-star recruit. He's gonna be playing in a new system, and so far from what I've read from Brent Pry and heard him speak to the press conference and all this stuff, he's really bought in, and I feel like he could have a really big year, and if he does, he could potentially shoot up some draft boards a little bit. I think if he has this one strong year, there's a chance he could be a mid-round pick in next April's draft. At least in my opinion, but I'm really excited to watch him. I know Tisdale. I'm making sure he's. I'm pretty sure Alan Tisdale is still there.
Yeah, let me double check on that one. But yeah,
just making sure. There's the D line little weak, I should say, on that unit, but linebackers, I like that unit. The secondary, should be fine. I know Caleb Farley's not there anymore, and Jermaine Waller are gone, but Armani Chapman is still there, I'm pretty sure. Shamari Connor is still really good. So I think it has the makings of a decent unit. A Brent Pry defense is never bad. I've always learned that for as long as he's been coaching. So I think it's going to be a decent unit. I think they will win next week against ODU. I'm sure they've been talking up a big game just because we lost the last time, but I don't think Lightning will strike twice there.
We won last time. They won before that.
Yeah, that's what I was meaning. Sorry. I will say this, D. I think this year, if they go 7-5, that's a win. I don't think they're going to go 8-4. Would love to be wrong. That's a massive win. But if you can go 7-5, I think that would be a lot better than what some other people are predicting. I think anywhere between there and I think it's going to be that, or they're going to go 6-6. A bowl will be good. I don't think they're going to be contender for the ACC Coastal. They don't have, I think, enough Power 5 talent on the team. It's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be tough to watch at times, but it's a new regime. I think it's a regime that understands Virginia Tech, and I am excited to watch, just a new system on both sides of the ball for this season, especially watching Grant Wells. If he cuts down on those interceptions, I really think he could be a good quarterback here for the next couple of years.
I think what this program really needs is stability. And when you look at what Fuente left Brent Pry with, it was definitely not something. Brent Pry was not put in the best situation, and he did a really good job bringing in talent into where talent needed to go. And for a new situation with a new coach, especially a first time coach like Brent Pry, who has spent his entire career on a defense, I am actually somewhat excited to see what the offense is. But I'm also going to temper my expectation because because it's still at the end of the day a first year head coach, and there are going to be growing pains. And frankly, Virginia Tech had to focus their efforts not just on the field, but rebuilding the recruiting and bringing in, making it a trusted brand in Virginia for high schoolers. So I think part of their job last few months was getting this team ready for the season and getting it to a point where they can compete, but also at the same time rebuilding those bonds with in the community and getting that in-state talent. And so it's definitely an important season. No one should keep their expectations up high for Virginia Tech. If, like you said, they go 7-5, that's a huge win. But you basically what you want to do is you want to end the year in a way where 2023 becomes more exciting. You want to be excited about next season, next couple of years, but through what you see this year. You want to springboard 2022 to the next few years, and I think that's basically the objective here. Because, yeah, I mean, you look at Chamari, because I kind of like to look at some of these players, like look at Penn State, right? I like to look at Penn State and then kind of see where our players kind of match. Like Jamari, like Jaquan Brisker was a good player, so I do see a little bit of how Jamari Connor could be used, kind of like how Brent Pry used Jaquan Brisker at Penn State. So I think if Jamari Connor he has a good chance to be a standout on this defense. Dax Hollifield, he by no means, he is not a Micah Parsons, but could he be a Jesse Luketa? Could he do what Jesse Luketa has done? And then you look at the pass rushers, could they do what you look at a guy like Adafe, like I don't think we have a guy whose projections like an Adafe Owe type player, but can they have like success setting the edge and defending the run like Adafe Owe had when he was at Penn State, or Arnold Mbeketi, right? So in that 1 year last year. So just seeing just like putting the comparisons between the two programs and seeing what they can do is going to be exciting to watch. But yeah, so we'll end the show there. We'll be back next week. We're going to be recapping. No. We might be back next week. Depending on our schedules.
Yeah, should be making sure should be good next week. Week after that, though, indeed, I'll be in Aruba for my 2-year anniversary with my girlfriend, so I won't have a show for that week.
Yeah, so that is fine. So basically, yeah. So we'll recap the ODU game. We'll talk more football. We'll talk NFL. We'll talk
preseason.
Yep, we'll do all that stuff. So we'll see you then.
Yep, we'll be back next week. Have a good one, guys.